So good morning, everybody. I am encouraging people to put names into the chat of anyone that you are interested in sending healing energy to. And I also am going to share my screen and put up Debbie Friedman's Misha Berach, so that anyone who would like to say that to themselves or sing it can go ahead and do so. We're not going to do that aloud. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, share screen. Here we go. Nope. Wait a second. This is the wrong thing. I have too many windows open on my screen, folks. How's that? Can you see the Misha Berach? Okay, thank you. So the suggestion was made that we offer healing prayers, and I think it's a lovely suggestion. And last time we tried this for the first time, and I'm doing it a little bit differently today. I'm suggesting you put names in the chat of people you would like to offer healing prayers for, and say whatever prayer you would like. And this is one option. And I will give us a moment, and then we are going to get back to our meditation. So I wish Refuah Shlema to everyone. And I am going to stop the share now. So welcome, everyone. And I invite you to take your seat, and we'll spend a moment settling, breathing together. Appreciating that we're taking the time out for ourselves to be together and to support ourselves. So this week's Parsha is Mishpatim, and this Parsha actually is the covenant between God and the Israelites. So throughout the Parsha, we're learning a whole lot of rules for behavior and the consequences for not obeying the rules. So in the first portion of the Parsha, we have civil and criminal rules. So these rules are dealing with things like the way to treat indentured servants, capital crimes like murder, bodily injury, whether it's caused by people or animals, property damage. And this section ends with the rules around the seduction of a virgin. I thought that was interesting. Then there's a section that deals with a variety of religious and social rules, like prohibitions against sorcery, the proper treatment of disadvantaged people, obligations to God, judicial conduct, which is pretty timely with what's going on now in Israel, and treatment of the enemy, which I thought was interesting. And there's also this section that lays out the religious calendar and food prohibition. So this is where we hear that you should never cook a kid in its mother's milk. So finally, the Parsha ends with the people really enthusiastically ratifying the covenant. So there are a few lines in the Parsha which really highlighted for me our imperative to respect the vulnerable and focus on ethical behavior. So I'm going to share some of these with you regarding respecting the vulnerable in our midst. Chapter 22, verse 20, you shall not wrong nor oppress a stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. It's a pretty famous line. And verse 21, you, and this is talking to the communal leaders, shall not ill-treat any widow or orphan. And regarding ethical behavior and the notion of justice, chapter 23 had a whole bunch of verses that dealt with this, that really spoke to me. So verse 1, you must not carry false rumors. You shall not join hands with the guilty to act as a malicious witness. Verse 4 talks about taking back a wandering animal. So if you see an animal wandering, you need to take it to its rightful owner. You can't let it just hang out. Verse 8, do not take bribes, for bribes blind the clear-sighted. Really like that one. And verse 10, leaving the land lie fallow in the 7th year and allowing the needy to eat from it. So this, sort of bridges that ethical behavior and taking care of the less fortunate. So all of this comes right after last week when we received the 10 Commandments. And for me, there's this really strong ethical component, which I've always felt was the underpinning of Judaism. Now, that's my personal bias. That's my personal comment. It's not necessary for anyone to agree with me. The essay this week in the Musar Torah commentary was written by Rabbi Dr. Shmuley Yanklowitz, and he lifts up the midah, or the character trait of equanimity, which he describes as finding peace in responsibility. And he points out that chapter 24, verse 3, after Moses has repeated all of the requirements that God had and laid out in the covenant, that verse says, all the people answered with one voice, saying, all the things Yud-Heh Vav-Heh has commanded, we will do. So there's this enthusiastic agreement to taking responsibility, to doing all of this. And that's what Rabbi Yanklowitz is looking at in terms of equanimity. I found that a little confusing, frankly. So I went to my sources. I went to Alan Marinus, and he describes equanimity as calmness of the soul, a sense of inner balance, an ability to coexist with a turbulent world in a way that accepts the turbulence just simply because that's the way life is. So he goes on to say that a calm soul is like a surfer. I love this metaphor. Calm soul is like a surfer who rides the waves on an even inner keel. And to quote Alan Marinus from Everyday Holiness, Equanimity is a quality of being centered in yourself, though at the same time being exquisitely sensitive to the forces that are at work all around, or else you will be vulnerable to being tossed around by the sorts of unexpected waves that crash in on every life. Equanimity is a quality of being centered in yourself, though at the same time being exquisitely sensitive to the forces that are at work all around. So maybe that's really what Rabbi Yanklowitz is talking about when he's pointing out that the people are agreeing to this covenant, understanding this is going to be hard because there are a lot of rules and a lot of regulations, but they're going to do it. The other thing that Morenas points out that I think is really important is that with equanimity, we're not pulled off our center by other people's emotions or wishes or projections. So I take that as that's how we can withstand peer pressure, that sense of real being centered. So I also looked to see what my friend Sylvia Boorstein would have to say about equanimity. And she talks very similarly to Morenas, but in slightly different language. She talks about equanimity as being able to accept every experience with full awareness, that it's really deeply paying attention. And she says, and I'm quoting, it's an understanding that everything is always the only way it can be in this moment. So accepting what's true in the moment is equanimity. And we talked about a couple of weeks ago about seeing what's true in the moment. So all of this brought to mind for me the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity, I'll say equanimity, to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So with that, I invite you to adjust your seat. Really feel yourself grounded wherever it is that you're sitting or standing or lying down. Really feeling supported. With an alert yet relaxed posture. And maybe taking a couple of deep cleansing breaths. And if you're comfortable closing your eyes, doing so. And remembering that if you feel in any way that the position you're in is not serving you, change it. So that might mean opening your eyes if they're closed, closing your eyes if they're open, adjusting your seat if you need to. Paying attention to what's true for you in this moment. And we'll sit in silence for about 10 minutes. I invite you to begin to deepen your breath. Slowly and gently begin to bring your attention outward. And as you are coming back to the room, going to read a poem written by Krista Tippett based upon words that she heard Sharon Salzberg say at a retreat. And Krista Tippett shared this on an episode of On Being when she was interviewing or in conversation with Sharon Salzberg. And I quickly grabbed a piece of paper and wrote down what I heard. So, Equanimity by Krista Tippett. I do the best I can. I try to learn from my mistakes. And the world is the world of constant change and pleasure and pain, and being thanked and not being thanked. All of these things. So that's where equanimity comes in, as a kind of comprehension of this is the way things are. So this is the way things are.